What you have in Kwara as APC now is only a tiny rump of what the party used to be in 2019. So that's where we derive our confidence from. Plus, the people have seen that we are not as bad as they used to think.
Hello and welcome to Premium Times interview. Today I am interviewing Mr. Bolaji Abdullahi. Mr. Bolaji is a former commissioner of education in Kwara State. He is a former special assistant to the former governor of Kwara State, Bukola Saraki. He was also the Minister of Youth and Sports under the Goodluck Jonathan administration. Today we're going to be having a one-on-one exclusive with him because he's running for the Kwara Central Senatorial District in 2023. Good to have you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
So let's just start with your plan now. You initially ran for governorship in your party, but you now took on the senatorial ticket. So is this like a consolation prize for you?
Well, I wouldn't call it a consolation prize. I mean, yes, you are right, because my initial plan was to contest for the governorship, because all my life in the public service, I've always seen myself as an executive person, someone who likes to solve a problem. Every day I want to wake up solving a particular problem, you know. And especially my time as a commissioner for education made me realize what was possible in terms of helping children to learn. So that's, if I didn't become commissioner for education, I'll probably not be a politician today, because that was what really made me realize what was possible, you know, where you have executive power.
Right.
You know, so when I came out to contest for the governorship, show interest in the governorship, of course, you know, the reality of politics is that there are always considerations in terms of balancing, you know, which is quite legitimate, you know. So my party decided that it's in our strategic interest to for the governor to come from another part of the state at this time, you know, and it's the same consideration that informed that the senator from the Kwara Central also come from where I come from, you know, and the party believes that I will be in the best position to help the party to win that particular contest this time. So, you know, so that's why I'm running for the Senate.
Okay, so before now you were a commissioner.
Yes.
What would you say should be the focus? I mean, you are saying that if you had not been a commissioner before now, you wouldn't have actually gotten into politics.
Yes.
So what would you say is the focus? How would you want to influence that?
You see, I realized that the 4 years I spent as a commissioner for education made me realize that people in government can actually do a lot, you know. Without sounding immodest, I think the work we're able to do in those 4 years as commissioner, I try to imagine sometimes that what if I was a chief executive? I knew the limitations, you know. I knew the limitations as a commissioner. You were only an appointee, right? But I was only lucky to have a chief executive that understood the vision and was willing to back the vision, right? Now, I have told myself repeatedly that if I was a chief executive who actually determined what goes into the budget, right? Imagine what I could do, you know. So for me, education is everything, right? If you mention any problem, any social problem, I will tell you how it connects with education, right? And how education can help to solve some of these problems, right? So as a senator, inshallah, I tell myself that I will probably be able to influence my colleagues to escalate the issue of education on the legislative agenda, because I don't think we are paying enough attention to what should happen. I mean, when I was undergraduate, I suffered from ASU strike, right?
Right.
My children suffered from ASU strike, right? If we don't do something now, it's possible that their own children will still suffer from ASU strike. So Nigeria's education system, from bottom to the top, still belongs to the last century. No country in the world still does education the way we do it in Nigeria, except countries like us, right? But no country that is progressive, that is in tune with the development of the 21st century, still does education.
Are you talking education at all levels now?
Oh, no, at all levels.
Right.
You know, of course, you know that if you don't get basic education right, you are going nowhere, right? But there is no country that does higher education without starting from the fundamental question of what kind of economy do we want to build, right? Because the purpose of higher education is to develop human resource for the economy, right? No country does higher education for the sake of awarding certificates. People do higher education because they look at the structure, the nature of their economy, and tell themselves, we need to develop human resource for this economy, to support this economy, right? And they design their higher education in line with the vision of the kind of economy they want to build and the kind of society they want to build. At the moment, we are not doing enough of that because we are not asking the right kind of questions. And that's why I'm saying that it's my hope that when I become senator, I will be able to push this more aggressively than it has been done in the past, and hopefully it will gain traction. Because if we don't fix this, we are not going anywhere as a country.
Okay, I want us to be a lot more practical here now. For example, we have about 20 million out-of-school children, and then there's a consistent ASU strike. That's what I asked initially at all levels.
Yes.
So, in practicality now, are you saying just limit? Would you say your influence will be limited to just bills and motions? Would you in a way try to influence the budgetary allocations given to the educational sector? So, I mean, what are your steps basically for education?
You see, the work of a legislature can be broadly broken down to three. Representation, legislation, and oversight. There is so much that we can actually use the law for that we are not doing, right?
Okay.
But what I find is that Nigeria actually has legislation for almost everything, right? But the question is, those laws, are they implementable? Are they delivering on the purpose for which they are meant to deliver? For example, you made reference to 20 million children. Nigeria passed the UBE law in 1999, right? Establishing the Universal Basic Education Commission, which was to make education, basic education, up to the first 9 years, compulsory, universal, and free, right? One of the best laws of basic education anywhere in the world. Compulsory. How can your law say basic education is compulsory and you have 20 million children out of school and nobody is paying for violating the law, right? You say it's universal. Means that wherever a Nigerian child is, you have to provide the facilities for that child to get basic education, right? Is that happening? No, but that's what the law says. Third one, it should be free. Is it free? Right? Children are still being sent home, to the best of my knowledge. Children are still being sent home for as little as 4,000 naira, 3,000 naira across the country. So you see, now after 20 years, the question should be, has this law served the purpose of basic education in Nigeria? Because there are two sides to it. The Universal Basic Education Law is meant to manage, the commission is meant to manage the 5% of consolidated revenue for basic education, right? We talk about 20 million children out of school, but what we often miss is that there are probably 40 million children who are in school who are not even getting education. That's even worse, right? Today, since the launch of the UBE, regardless of the number of children you have out of school, Nigeria has more children attending schools today than at any other time in our history. Now the question is, are they getting education? You know, attending school is one thing. Right. Are they getting education? So the only chance of a child getting education today probably depends on the economic and social circumstance of the parent. Are the parents able to pay for private education, right? So the point I'm making is that after 20-something years, it's about time that we go back and review that law. And that's one of the things I would like to push for. We need to review the Universal Basic Education Commission law and ask ourselves, right, 20-something years after, is it still serving the purpose we want it to serve? If not, what can we do to make it more enforceable and to make the commission more, to accept more responsibility for giving education to children? So there are so many other things, right? But that's my own inspiration.
So before I leave education, I don't know, I just want us to talk about the recent policy that the Ministry of Education is trying to implement, you know, about teaching children in our local languages and having them learn the local languages in school and all. Where do you stand on that?
Look,
so I'll tell you what I'm asking, because it's a controversy right now. Some people are saying, oh, we need to actually learn accents, foreign accents, because it makes you stand out in some places. It makes you, you feel somehow, you look somehow when you go to an international space and you have this very funny kind of accent and all of that. So there's the whole controversy about that.
I think there is something, the people saying that, I think there is a challenge of education somewhere. Language is a tool, right, to communicate ideas, to communicate meanings. You know, if you are able to speak, why would a Nigerian want to speak like British? Why would Nigerian want to speak like American? Are you American? You are Nigerian. Now let's go back to the issue of teaching in local language. I think it has its benefits. And I've experimented with this when I was Commissioner for Education. I stumbled on a class where children were being taught how to read time. But I could see they were struggling, right?
In local language?
In English.
Okay.
Right? What I did was to ask the class to be divided into two. So one half to be taught how to read time in Yoruba, the other half to be taught in English. The half that was taught in Yoruba mastered it like this in no time, because they were not struggling to understand English language. Because when you are teaching them in English language, you are teaching them two things at the same time, or they are struggling to understand two things. They are trying to understand the language, they are trying to understand the content, right? But the ones that you taught in Yoruba were only struggling to understand the content rather than the language. They already understand the language, right? So you can see the difference. However, there are more complications around that we need to deal with. How do you teach Pythagoras' theorem, for example, in Hausa, or in Nupe, or in Yoruba, or in Igbo? How do you teach chemistry? You know, there is Professor Bas. It's not a new conversation. Professor Bas Fafuwa was a Minister of Education many years, decades ago, and he actually started the conversation around mother tongue as a medium of teaching. But the truth is that our languages we have not developed our languages, the vocabularies of our languages, the tools of our languages, to be able to handle the extent of knowledge that I want them to give to children, right? Even at the most basic levels, even at the most elementary levels, and I think we can experiment with it and try to see those who can, but that's not the priority now.
It shouldn't be compulsory.
No, that's not the priority now. There are more urgent issues to be dealt with, you know.
All right, so you were also former Minister of Youth and Sports. Is there any unfinished business, you think, anything you would want to do to influence that sector?
First, youth development. I was in youth development. Unfortunately, I was in youth development just for 1 year before I was moved to sports. But I think, if you ask me, That's the most important. That should be the most important ministry in Nigeria. But I think the government itself still hasn't understood what to do with that ministry. You know, as a standalone Ministry of Youth Development, it was part of the African Union resolutions in 2007 under President Yaradua that the issue of youth has become so huge on the African continent that it needed to be decoupled from women affairs, social welfare, and all those things. You know, so that's when Nigeria now had a standalone Ministry of Youth Development. But I don't think that the federal government itself knew what it really wants to do with that ministry. You know, because my experience as a Minister of Youth Development was that people remember the Minister of Youth Development only when you needed to mobilize young people for political activities, right?
We're coming to that, but don't worry.
So, but I try to imagine, you know, the coordinating role, you know, because at that time, I was also the youngest minister, so maybe that's why they sent me there, you know. I saw myself as representing young people within the federal government and representing the federal government among the young people, right? So I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done, you know, in terms of how that ministry is structured and in terms of the responsibilities that it is allowed to handle. It's even worse now when you take it back to sports as part of the Ministry of Sports. Because sports is a very, very jealous wife. You know, you add sports to anything, that thing suffers, right? So I think it's a wrong move to bring them back together again. Youth development should be youth development, right? And sports should be sports. So if I had my ways to also be able to make a case on how to mainstream the Ministry of Youth Development so that it's no longer seen as a Siberia of posting, ministerial posting, but as a ministry that can actually be used to jumpstart the participation of young people in national development and in promoting competitiveness among young people. Now, for sports, yes, of course, you know, there is so much that still needs to be done in sports. I think we are too focused on the glory part of it. You know, winning medals, winning trophies, that we are actually not doing the real work that needs to be done to develop the sports as an industry. We haven't done that. And that's why you see that even in terms of glory hunting, we still continue to come short. You know, in 2013, when I led Nigeria to win the Africa Cup of Nations after 19 years, right? Some journalists came to interview me and said, okay, how will you rate sports in Nigeria? We just won the AFCON, and we just won the Under-17 World Cup at the same time, the same year. And I said, 4/10. And they were astonished. You just won the AFCON, and your rating sports 4/10. I said, yes, it's 4/10, because until Nigeria becomes the default nation to win the AFCON, right? Until we are able to develop a system that guarantees results, that ensures that each time Nigeria files out, Nigeria does well, right? Then our work is not done. It wasn't so much of prophecy, but since then, have we...
Right. I mean, so what would you say is lacking? What would you say is missing in the
system. There's no system.
All right.
There's no system. We are too much in a hurry. We're too much in a hurry. You hire this manager. He loses 2 games. You sack him. You start all over again. What is the strength of the technical department in the Nigerian Football Federation? Everything that goes on around our national team should start in the technical department. Do you even have a technical department that you can say is aware of the work that needs to be done to deliver results? I don't think so. More often than not, we just go to these competitions and sing, you are a miracle, we are a miracle, working God. I hope that miracle takes over. You know, rather than doing anything deliberate to actually deliver results. So for me, I think that's one serious unfinished business. We're going to start that, actually. We're going to set up the high performance system, you know, shortly before I left. That will have started us along the path that we should be heading.
So there are chances you would want to start something there or try to influence something there, change in that sector?
Yeah, I'll be happy to work with whoever is there.
Let's bring it down to Kwara State now. Your political family
Yes,
lost
yeah.
out in 2019 election.
I was wondering how long it would take you to come to that question.
I mean, they lost out in 2019,
Yeah.
and you seem pretty confident that the PDP is going to take over. Actually, a lot of PDP candidates and supporters seem pretty confident that in 2023 they're taking over Kwara State. What has changed in Kwara State? I think it's a two-part question. First of all, what has changed, and what makes you think? Are you worried that, despite the fact that it is controlled by APC now, there would not be only one or two shenanigans? So what has changed, and why are you so confident that you are going to take over?
Well, in politics, things can change so quickly, just like in life, Many a times, people have voted out what they consider to be a bad government, a government they no longer wanted, and end up with the government they don't need, And that was what happened to us in 2019. People felt, oh, we've had enough of these people, so they should go, right? Those who came, the APC people that came, promised them everything, including the moon, and they are not able to deliver on the expectations of the people. They overpromised and delivered nothing. When I say delivered nothing, I'm not making political talk. You are a journalist, you can investigate. Kwara State is probably the only state where the governor has spent 3.5 years and spent billions of naira and has not commissioned one project. One. Right? How could that have happened? In 3.5 years, you don't have a single elected local government chairman in Kwara State. How did that happen? Right? So we're not the ones just saying it. In 2019, the slogan of politics, Kwara has shown that we are capable of creating vocabularies for Nigerian politics. Right. In 2019, it was Otoge. Now it is Osua. Osua means we are fed up, we are tired. Now, so it's the people saying Osua that we are tired. So we are confident that the people have had the benefit of comparing. We have learned our lessons. And I can say that part of where we derive our confidence from is that we appear to have benefited more from our failure in 2019 than the people who won are able to benefit from their own victory. Because soon after they took over government, they began to unravel very quickly. All the people that banded together at the time to do the Otoge thing, they've all fallen apart. The Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, is not talking to the governor. Senator Saraki, the Minister of Mines, is not talking to the governor. Professor Babu, who was one of the drivers, not talking, is in another party now, is the governorship candidate of NNPP. Hakim Lawal, who was one of the drivers of the Autogate, is the governorship candidate of SDP. So what you have in Kwara as APC now is only a tiny rump of what the party used to be in 2019. So that's where we derive our confidence from. Plus, the people have seen that we are not as bad as they used to think.
Okay, so you served under the former Governor Bukola Saraki, and I want to think you still view him as maybe not entirely a godfather, but somebody you can look up to, perhaps a mentor, a political mentor. Yeah, but he's not on the ballot this time, and it's to be one of the first time in years that he won't be on the ballot.
Yes,
Do you think his absence on the ballot would influence the outcome of the election, especially for the PDP?
Yeah, it can, in the sense that it now gives him an opportunity to have a panoramic view of the entire process. When you are not on the ballot, it's easier for you to see things a lot more clearly, right? So it's actually of benefit to our political family, rather than a disadvantage, right?
Okay.
So, because he's now able to play the role that he should be playing as our leader encumbrance or without him worrying about winning his own election. So he's able to view things more dispassionately and more technically, right? So, I mean, you asked me earlier why we're so confident. I think it's also that one-on-one, when you compare the candidates that the PDP is fielding with the candidates that the other parties are fielding, without sounding immodest, I think PDP has better quality of candidates than the other parties. I mean, I'm contesting for the Senate, you know. There is no other person in that race, in Kwara State, in any other party that's had the kind of experience that I've had in public service. Not one, right? And if you come from zero, you've never held a public office before, not even a councillor, and you want to jump from that base of never doing government to the Senate, you know, the way I put it is that you can never find an L sign on a Ferrari or a brand new Mercedes-Benz. You don't learn how to drive with a brand new Mercedes-Benz, right? So if you want to learn to drive, you start with a rickety Pojo somewhere. You know, but you've never done government before. Suddenly you woke up, you say you want to go to the Senate. And so I think this gives advantage to us, right? Right? Okay. Plus the fact that Kwara State, Kwara Central, where I'm contesting from, have a history of electing to the Senate only a particular kind of people. If you look at it, from the Second Republic, I will take it only from the Second Republic. Dr. Olusola Saraki, the patriarch of the Saraki dynasty, the Senator Dr. Ishaq Salman, a medical doctor, Dr. Bukola Saraki himself, Senator Gbemisola Saraki, Senator Bukola Saraki, who became the Senate, who ended up to become Senate President. Then, of course, Senator Iroanusi, doctor, that medical doctor. There is something about doctors. No, of course. Then you have all these doctors. And they've all done very well, including Dr. Iroanusi. He's done very well, right? Regardless of party, I'm not going to deny that he has done very well, right? I think he's not on the ballot because APC appear to have a disdain for educated people.
You were in the APC at some point.
Yes, I was. Yeah, I was.
If you win this election on the PDP now, would you share some of the glory with APC? Would you say it sort of had an influence, maybe your network, your relationship, what you did before, speaking for you, either the successes or the shortcomings, whatever? Would you want to?
Well, it's possible. I mean, you have friends. You see, the thing is that people laugh at people who say, oh, they want to say PDP, they say APC. They want to say APC, they say PDP. People laugh at them. But the truth is that we are all human beings. So people have moved forward and backwards several times, and they're even confused, But the point here is that there is a distinct difference between APC and PDP, and I've seen both sides. And I can tell you, without any, I'm not playing to the gallery or anything, it appears to me that PDP is the party that is structured and set up to run government. Despite the limitations of PDP, if you look at the last 16 years, almost every institution of government you can point at in this country was created by the PDP. Yeah. So it appears to me that PDP is the party that is really set up to do government, right? Now, and that's why we have done very poorly as an opposition party, because opposition is not what we are set up to do, right? And if you look at APC, as an opposition party, APC was fantastic, right? So it's like APC is the party appears to be set up to do opposition. They don't know how to do government. And we can see the evidence in the last 7.5 years. They don't know how to do government. They are not set up to do government, right? So as an opposition party, they are good. So they perform poorly as government because they are set up as opposition party. We perform poorly as opposition party or PDP because we are set up to do government. A lot of synthesis is happening at the moment, but I can tell you that for me, I was in APC at the time, right? But we've all gone one way or the other in the past and you realize that, okay, this place I'm heading is not the place I should be heading, then you make a U-turn and you go elsewhere. You go to where you belong. So.
Right. Okay, so I've heard somewhere or read somewhere where you said we're worried about electoral processes and how some politicians like to want to manipulate. Do you trust the electoral process now, especially with the invention of the Electoral Acts and the new changes that are being put in place now ahead of the next year's election?
Yeah, I'm largely confident, but you see, every law is as good as the people implementing it, right? I have no doubt about the capacity of the INEC to deliver very good elections, right? And for me, many politicians are complaining that the new policy of CBN that cash withdrawals is going to affect. Well, maybe because I don't have a lot of money, right? I think it's good, right? Because now you cannot bring cash to buy votes on the line on election day, as used to happen in some places.
Well, you know, both APC and PDP agents have been caught doing that.
I did not mention the party.
Okay.
I only said that. Now with this policy, it means that people who want to buy votes on the line will not be able to do so. They will have to make transfers. And when you make transfers, it means it can be traced, right? So I hope, I can see people running helter-skelter trying to scuttle that. For me, I like it because we can then campaign on the strength of our ideas, persuading the people to vote for us. Anybody contesting the election should contemplate two possibilities. You win or you lose, right? If you are not able to contemplate the possibility of losing, then you are not ready to be a politician. So that's what politics is about. When you tell yourself the only way you keep going, that the reason you are doing it is bigger than you. That is the reason you are doing it, and that reason is bigger than yourself.
Do you have any fears? Do you have any fears? I mean, let's
about the electoral process?
Yes, about the electoral process, the outcome of the election, just the entire process.
No. I don't have any fears. I don't have any fears. Like I said, there are two possibilities when you go for any contest, whether election contest or sports contest or whatever. You win or you lose, right? But I want to be seen to have run a very good race. I want to be seen to have, and when I say good race, I mean within certain standards, moral standards that I've set for myself, right? That I don't want to fall below. So I want to be seen to have run a good race. That's one. Two, I want to be ready. So when I win the election, I want to be ready to serve the people. I want them to say, hang on. No, because look, something interesting is happening now. We as candidates will go to people to say, vote for us, right? In the past, people will say, oh, if you want us to vote for you, we will vote for you. But when we vote for you, what will you do for us, right?
Yeah.
But now I find that the people are front-loading their demands. Now they say, if you want us to vote for you, what will you do for us, right? Mm-hmm. They want you to do whatever you want to do for them now. So you find candidates like us are the ones fixing boreholes, fixing classroom, fixing roads, right? So they no longer trust that when you get into the office, you actually do those things that you promised to do, right? So they front load their requests and ask you to do those things now, right? So when you get to the office, you do whatever. So I think it's wrong. I don't think that's the way it's meant to be. So I tell my colleagues that the responsibility that we have is that when we get into the office, we should try to restore the trust of the people in politics and politicians so that people coming behind us will find it easier to campaign, right? Because when people don't trust politicians, they have a reason not to, because all these boreholes that we are fixing now as candidates, some people promised to fix those boreholes in the past, promised them to do those things, right? The classrooms that we are fixing now as candidates, they voted for some people and some people's jobs, and they have not done their jobs, right? So we have a duty so that the generation coming behind us will not suffer what we are suffering now, having to now be fixing boreholes and repairing classroom and roads as candidates, right? You know, so for me, these are I don't nurse any fears about. The worst thing you can do for yourself going through all this is to also add the anxiety to it. Oh, what if I lose? You will die now. What if I lose? Then you are not able to sleep. You're not able to eat. Then you can't even think clearly, right? And you need to be able to think clearly. You must not forget what this is about, right? Okay. So, that's it.
So there's one thing I like to ask candidates to do. I mean, I'm eager to know, I'm curious to know what it is you're telling the people of Kwara Central right now that you want them, that should make them want to vote for you.
You know, that's a very good question actually, because it took me a while to actually find a way to articulate the ideas of what I want them, of what to promise them. Because as a legislator, your primary responsibility is what? Legislation. But the mass of the people don't make a distinction between what is executive responsibility and what is legislative responsibility. They want to pay their children's school fees, they want to fix their classroom, they want to fix their boreholes, they want to fix their roads, they want you to pay for burial, they want you to do this, right? So sometimes when you speak to people, it sounds though that you are contesting for an executive position rather than a legislative position. So if you go into a community and say, don't worry, vote for me, when I become senator, I'm going to make laws. You look at you and say, what is law? In any case, in Yoruba, law means ofin. And our historical knowledge of ofin is something that is used to punish people. Law is something you use to punish people, not something you use to help people. So when they say you are making law is something that is used to catch people. That is the historical knowledge of law that we have. So when you now say they should vote for you to go and make law, they'll just look at you and say, is this guy well? You know? So you have to find a way to frame it. First, with my understanding of the challenges that our people are facing. The biggest challenge anywhere in this country today, and Kwara Central is not an exemption, is poverty. The biggest issue is poverty. So whether you are going to address the issue of poverty through legislation, through policy, through spending, you have to do it, right? So you have to talk to the people about poverty. And I'm not talking about poverty. I like the concept of multidimensional poverty because it helps us to understand poverty beyond the ramification of money, right? You are able to look at health poverty, education poverty, and I like the idea that child poverty is desegregated from the overall general poverty. So if you are able to, I understand that poverty is the big issue, right? And what are those things that drive poverty? Lack of skills, lack of access to credit, lack of jobs, right? So by the time you address this issue of poverty, you're also telling young people that you deliver skills to them or facilitate the delivery of skills to them. You're also telling women and young people, entrepreneurs, that you help to facilitate access to credit, right? You're also saying that you also help to create an enabling environment for them to do their business. And these are all within the possibilities of what a legislature can do.
Okay, before I let you go, the Football League Management Committee was introduced under you.
Yes.
Was declared illegal. What are your recommendations? What would you recommend to help revive that league, revive the committee?
It's unfortunate that anyone will say that the LMC is illegal. It's unfortunate, right? And I don't know what they mean by illegality, you know, in that respect. I wish it's something that can be contested, you know. When I came into the office as Minister of Sports, the Nigerian Premier League, I have a copy of a letter written by one of the title sponsors, right, rejecting further sponsorship of the league. And you know what? They say Nigerian Premier League has become worthless. Those are the words. They say worthless. And therefore, they will no longer be interested in funding it. That's what the title sponsor at the time said. right? Then I tried to bring their rival company to say, look, I'm willing to give you the league if you are willing to fund it. They wrote me a beautiful love letter. We are not interested, sorry. Right? And those were the times that the managers of the league, the president of the Nigeria League, or chairman, sorry, will go from one club to another, asking clubs to pay the indemnities of referees, right? When you ask a hosting club, a home club, to pay the allowance of the referee, naturally they will win the game. And that's why if you look at the record, you see that almost every home game is being won by the clubs that host the game, right? So those were the times that we're hearing ridiculous stories like matches being won by 10 goals to nil, going on for 3 hours until the preferred winner actually scores a goal, right? The whole thing was a mess, right? And the chairman were coming to my office on a weekly basis to ask for money to even keep the league going. And I said, no, this can't continue like this. So what I did was to go to those sponsors and promise them that will be changed and they'll get value for their money if they're interested. Okay, well, let's see the change. Let's okay, this is what we'll do. I called the FA chairmen across the countries, 36 states, all the FA chairmen, the Football Association chairmen, right? And I persuaded them that these gentlemen running the league at this time are no longer suitable for the direction that the league should be going. So you need to impeach them, right? And I persuaded them to impeach them. After impeaching them, they were hoping, they had an added incentive to impeach them because they were also hoping that one of them would take over, right? But what they didn't know at the time was that I had already started a process of setting up a league management company, registering the league as a private company, right? Got the Nigerian Football Federation under Aminu Megari, wonderful man, right? To say, go and register the league as a private company, right? And we packaged it, right? And we appointed people. Now the shares will be owned by all the clubs equally, right? All the clubs, they will be shareholders in the league, of the league company, right? Then when we started the process, the first thing, I got this same company that said the league was worthless to pay a title fee of 330 million, right? I was even asking for a lot more. When they say, okay, no, this one. I got the DSTV Supersport to sign a contract with the league for $4 million US, right? And for the first time, Nigerian matches have been shown on Supersport, right? And life came back. People were going to stadiums at night and all that, right? And yes, when we left, a lot of things suffered and all that. But you don't throw away everything and say, oh, so what if you are going to throw it away? What are you replacing it with? The status quo that we overthrew, right? So I think the minister was not properly advised on that, right? I think they've set the process back many, many, many years, and it's not good for Nigerian football.
So what would you recommend?
The reason we set up the league management company is to make the league more efficient, right? If the league management company approach was no longer making the league more efficient or as efficient as it should be, then set up something that will make it more efficient, right? In the end, right, what matters is that we have a league that is respected and that is efficient. Look at the Moroccan national team, right? Look at how far they are able to go with some of the boys that are played in their local leagues, right? So I think a lot of things need to be done. But Nigerian football and politics like this, so you have to learn to play the politics, right?
Okay, so before I let you go, there are 4 legislations that I want to know where you would stand, say if you're elected into the Senate, if you would support it or not. And the first one is state police.
100%.
Gender equality.
100%.
Okay. Rehabilitation and reintegration of Boko Haram terrorists, repentant Boko Haram terrorists.
I need to know more about that.
You'd need to know
I will need to know more about that. I don't have enough information to be able to say. You know, when you say state police, I say 100%.
Right,
because I've had time to study that. When you say gender, 100%, because I also engaged Senator Olusola when she was working on the bill. So I know a lot about that. So I would say 100%. Right? Of course, there are some things that I think are a bit problematic about the gender bill, the way it was introduced at the time. Right? So because when you introduce a gender bill and you bring into the issue of right to abortion into that, then the bill is likely to suffer from. So there are things to be, as a principle, as a matter of principle, 100% I will support the gender bill. The regulation of Boko Haram, I don't know enough to be able to commit myself on that.
How about social media regulation?
I will need to know more about that as well because, look, I'm a journalist, right? But even I should be realistic enough to know that we need some kind of regulation. Whether it's by means of legislation, I don't think so. I don't trust government to regulate the media. But I don't trust media to regulate itself, right? Because we've proved incapable of doing that over the years. Now the question is, what do we need to do? Because we need some kind of regulation, right? For me, I look at what goes on the internet these days, and I'm appalled. I mean, when we went to school, we went to journalism school, right? There are basic standards. And I'll give you one example. Let's say beware of the 3 R's, right? Race, religion, and region, right? You don't do anything that can compromise national security or national integration. But today you see headlines like 10 Northerners intercepted, Nigerians intercepted in their own country, you know? So we need some kind of regulation. But whether it's by way of legislation, because patriotism is also a way that dictatorship disguises itself, you know, but we need to be careful. That's why I say I also need to know more about that.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for taking up the time to talk to us. We've been talking to Bolaji Abdullahi, the PDP senatorial candidate for Kwara Central. Join us next time. My name is QueenEsther Iroanusi. Bye.